What is going on, you guys, and welcome to the channel. Hope everybody's having a freaking awesome day. Today we're going to be taking a look at a Sony PS2 and a Sony PS3. I came across both of these at my local e-waste and I could not resist. I had to grab them. PS3 is missing the hard drive and a couple panels. Per usual, seems to be the typical whenever I find one of these. The PS2 was unfortunately in pieces, but it was bagged up and it looks like all the pieces are there. I have not messed with any of these yet. I don't know if they work, but we're going to get into it. We're going to find out, and we're going to do our best to bring these things back to life. Stay tuned, you guys. Alright, so these are our consoles in question. So as you can see, our PS2 is in many pieces. At least that saves me the trouble of having to break this thing down. First thing that I notice is this piece right here. This support for the controller port is completely bent out of shape. So we'll have to get that fixed up. We have our controller port right here. We have the top of our disc tray right here. And top and bottom piece of our shell. Moving on to the PS3. This one's not nearly as bad, however, it is missing the hard drive and this side piece right here, and then the back panel as well. Not a big deal. I'm pretty sure I have parts for this. And if you guys didn't see the PS3 repair that I did, that unfortunately did not work, I do have parts from that I can use for this guy. So I'm going to set you guys up and we're going to dive right into this. Probably going to start with the PS3 and then move on to the PS2. Alright, you guys, so we got the PS3 all nice and hooked up. This thing is absolutely filthy though. So hopefully we can get this thing working and get it all nice and cleaned up. But for now, we at least want to see if this thing's going to even power on. I do have it plugged in and I'm not seeing a red light right here, so that's kind of concerning. But we'll hit the button anyways and see what happens. Alright, so it's looking like we may not have power. Let me go ahead and flip this cable around. Okay, so I am a dummy-dumb. I did not have the cord actually plugged into the power strip. So we now have our red light, and we're going to go ahead and see if this thing will actually turn on. Alright, so we got our green light. It did in fact power on. Alright, so it does look like something's happening on the screen here, but it is unfortunately staying black. So we'll give it a second here. Sometimes it takes a while when you don't have the hard drive in, just like that. So we got cannot start. So that's good. We do have power. We do have video out. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is get a hard drive in here and do my USB update and see if this thing will play video games. While it does that, we are going to hook up the PS2 and test that as well. So I got an 80 gigabyte Toshiba hard drive that I'm going to go ahead and stick in here, and then we will do the USB update, see if it actually can do that. Once it does start updating, I will go ahead and hook up the PS2 and see what we got going on with that guy. So while I had this thing updating, it was at about 40% and then it just restarted for some reason. And it's saying that obviously the previous install operation was canceled and that it's attempting to try again. So this is going to be one of three things, typically anyways. Either my USB update is corrupted, which I've used on several other PS3s in the past, the hard drive is no good, or the Wi-Fi chip inside has gone bad, which will cause this issue. So we'll let it do this. If it restarts again, then I'm going to go ahead and reinstall the update onto my USB, try a different hard drive, and if none of that works, then we are going to move to the Wi-Fi chip itself and go ahead and replace that. So I just gotta wait for an error code. While this is doing this, let's go ahead and move on to the PS2, you guys. Alright, so we have our PS2 sitting here. Overall, it does look fairly clean. In fact, it looks like whoever took this apart previously may have actually done some cleaning on the inside, and they didn't do a half bad job. There's still a little bit of dust and remnants of crap in here, but we'll go ahead and get this thing hooked up and see what she does or doesn't do. Okay, so before I could even start working on this guy, this is what we ended up getting on the PS3. So that code is very, very often triggered by a bad Wi-Fi chip. So that's going to be the first thing that we investigate on this guy. But now we know what's up with this guy. We're going to go ahead and get this one turned on and see if it reads discs. I do not recommend anybody ever hooks it up like this. This is a good way to shock yourself if you're not careful. But with that being said, let's go ahead and turn it on. Alright, so we do have our little red light. So it is getting power. Let's go ahead and see if this thing turns on. So she is on, and it does give me a picture on the screen. So we'll go ahead and get a game in there and see if it reads discs. I'll be using Grand Theft Auto 3 to test. Spindle spins nice. Go ahead and give it a reset. Getting a really strange noise from the disk drive itself though, but the game it is spinning up, so that's a good sign. Alright, so getting tons of weird noise, and the disc did stop spinning, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull this disc out real fast. So one thing that I did notice is the fact that this laser is not moving at all. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the eject button, and it does eject, so we got that going for us. And see what's going on with this laser? What the hell? Alright, so the laser looks like it's completely stuck. If you're ever doing anything like this, never hover right above the laser. It can definitely leave a permanent blind spot if it hits you in the eye. Yeah, this thing is stuck. Holy crap. And we're getting some weird action on the screen here. Watch this. You guys see that? So we got some weird stuff going on with this PlayStation. So we're gonna go ahead and tear this thing apart and see if we can't fix this stuck laser, and then we'll move on back to the PS3. Alright, so I was going to just start with the PS3, but I am intrigued by the issues that we're having with this guy, so I'm going to start with this one first. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this disk drive out of here and see what's going on with the laser. After that, we're going to figure out why it's giving me the little glitchies on the screen whenever I mess with the AV port back here, because that's also not typical. Alright, so I'm going to start with these two screws on the side that are holding our disk tray in here, and then go from there, you guys. Alright, next up is going to be these four screws that are holding the actual disk drive itself. Alright, so with those removed, this whole assembly should just come right out. There is a couple ribbon cables that I have to detach, but yeah, this thing should be just about free. So let's go ahead and get these ribbon cables unhooked. Alright, so we have our entire disk drive assembly out. This piece right here should just pull right on out just like that. Then we're just going to go ahead and set all this stuff off to the side. Alright, so I'm not seeing anything right off the bat that's going to tell me exactly why this thing is stuck the way that it is. So we're just going to play with it a little bit and see what happens. I am also noticing that it is cracked right here on this plastic housing. So it looks like something definitely happened there. It's very unfortunate. Alright, so since I'm not seeing anything, I'm going to go ahead and take out these two screws holding the rails in and go ahead and get this laser out. Alright, so this is our culprit right here, this little rail. Not sure why it would be so stuck. I am seeing a little bit of corrosion right here though, or some kind of rust, but these typically don't rust due to the material that they're made out of. So I'm going to go ahead and get a pair of pliers and just gently try and rotate this inside the laser and see what happens. Alright, now she's moving. Okay, there we go. Alright, we got some action. Alright. Okay, so there is zero rust on here, no corrosion. There's grease. And now that I broke it free, it wants to move very freely. That's a good sign. Definitely a good sign. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some IPA. I'm going to clean out these little holes right here that the rail sets in. I'm going to clean off this rail and stick it back in there and see what happens. Do note that whenever you're working on something like this, to be very careful of this laser. You don't want to damage it by accidentally touching it or doing something. They damage really, really easy. Definitely getting some gunk coming out of here, that's for sure. Alright, let's see how this thing slides in and out now. Perfect. No more resistance at all. Alright, so we are going to get this assembly back together and see if it reads discs now. When I come back, this will all be back together. Alright, you guys, so we got this thing all back together now. We're going to go ahead and turn it on, see what happens, see if this thing decides to read a disc, which would be freaking awesome. If not, then we will dig a little bit deeper into the laser assembly and see what we can or cannot do. Alright, you guys ready? You think it's going to read? Alright, so I can see the laser actually moving now, so that's good. And unfortunately, it stopped spinning. So usually the first thing I like to do before I start digging in to the actual assembly itself and messing with pots, I'm going to want to adjust this little cog wheel over here, which adjusts the tilt. So it'll either raise it up closer or put it further away from the disc. That does sometimes fix this issue. And since we do have laser action now, it's not a bad idea to at least give this a shot. So while it's still on, I'm just going to go ahead and adjust this to the right. do a few clicks to the right and then go ahead and reset it. And see if that gives us a different result, which it does not. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust it a little bit more. So I'm just going to keep on adjusting until it either works or maxes out. All right, we're going to go ahead and adjust it again. Bummer. All right, let's keep on going here. Okay, we are getting a different spinning action here, you guys. Oh, it is spinning up. And look at that. Look at that. That is what I'm talking about. Let's freaking go. Come on, get into the game. It is now successfully reading the disc. I'll tell you what, this does not usually work. This is not something that... This has only ever worked a handful of times for me. That is awesome. Freaking phenomenal. Let's go ahead and reset it and see if we have the same result. And we have the same result, you guys. That is phenomenal. So I am going to go ahead and adjust it just a little bit further to the right and see if it still works. If it does not, then I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to where it is currently set and then go ahead and get this thing fully assembled. Not before it gets a good cleaning though. All right, awesome. This thing is probably going to be good to go. I can only hope and pray that the controller ribbon cable and ports are going to work, but this appears to be fixed. Let's go ahead and get this thing back together and see what happens, you guys. All right, so now that we got this thing back together for the most part, the last thing that I got to do is bend this bracket back up into shape. This is what's going to hold the controller port in its place. So let's hope and pray that this doesn't break off. Alright, that looks just about perfect. Let's go ahead and see if this is going to set in its shell now. Alright, here we go. Alright, so that did line up. Alright, now I just got to get this to go in here correct. Thing is definitely mangled a little bit. Alright, then we'll go ahead and get our top shell on. Once we do, we're going to go ahead and address this AV port back here. Alright, you guys, so we got her all back together. I really had to scrounge to find the right screws for this thing, but I did end up finding some that worked. The only unfortunate thing is I'm missing the feet on the bottom, which I do not have replacements for, but that's not really a big deal. So we're going to go ahead, see if this thing ejects. It does. Sounds like it needs some grease in there, which I can do off camera. Go ahead and stick our disc in here, give it a little reset. And fingers crossed that I didn't break anything putting this thing back together. And there it is. So we're going to go ahead and get a controller in here, make sure that this controller port still works, and this thing should be good to be sold. Alright, so we got our controller plugged in. Let's go ahead and see if we can get some action. Alright, looks like it is working perfectly fine. So our controller port does in fact work. I'll go ahead and give this a reset, plug in a memory card and see if that works as well. So we got our memory card here. Go ahead and plug it in. Inserts nice and smooth. Let's go ahead and see if it detects. And it does. Phenomenal. Alright, so this thing just needs a good little wipe down real fast, and this will be good to be sold. Alright. So I'll do a little bit more dusting and cleaning, just a tidbit here and there. It's really not that bad off camera. And then I did inspect the AV port, and now that it is in a shell, it is not having the issue that it was having previously. So this thing is freaking awesome. This is great. Now we're gonna move on to the PS3. All right, so we are now going to tear into this PS3, see if we can't figure out what's going on. I do have a feeling that it's the Wi-Fi chip inside is either unhooked somehow or another, because it does look like it's been taken apart. Maybe whoever did that before didn't reconnect it, or maybe it just needs a new module altogether. So we will go ahead, flip this guy over, and get it apart. So unfortunately, I did make a mistake when I was pulling this front piece off. I forgot that it's screwed in on either side. So, dummy dumb mistake on my part. Alright, so that's top shell off. Got a little bit of dust in here. Really not that bad. Go ahead and set this off to the side. So, first impression, she's definitely dusty, but honestly not too bad. So I'm going to go ahead and just start with a complete deconstruction of this thing. It needs to be cleaned out anyways, and then figure out what's going on with that Wi-Fi chip. Alright, so that's our disk reader out. Alright, next up is going to be our power supply. Alright, that thing did not want to come out. But it's out, and it's not too dusty either. I have a feeling that whoever owned this thing before may have maintained it. So, not half bad. Alright, so we got the boards separated from the bottom half of the shell here. And again, not a ton of dust. There's some dust, but it's not too bad. We'll go ahead and set this off to the side. Alright, so it looks like all the screws are out. Let's go ahead and see what it looks like in between these metal shields here. Not half bad on that shield. Motherboard does look clean. Let's see what our thermal paste looks like. Ooh, that paste was stuck. It's gonna be old and crusty. And it definitely has its original thermal paste on here. Oof. This poor thing. But overall, not bad condition. Let's go ahead and figure out what's going on with this chip. Alright, so I do believe this is our chip right here. And it is unfortunately soldered to the board. Not too sure what I can do about that. So there is a trick to where you can actually bypass this issue, but I would have to find me a video. It's been years since I've done any soldering on one of these, but it does involve putting a jumper somewhere on the board here to bypass that error. So probably have to check it out, refresh my memory, and if we can't get it working right now, go ahead and make that into a future video. However, I do believe that I can use parts from this, if we can't get it working, for another PS3 that I have, that I did in a previous video. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I might be able to use parts off of this to get that going, but first let's give this thing a nice good clean, get some new thermal paste on here, and see what happens. Alright, not bad. So she cleans up pretty nice. So we're going to go ahead and get the rest of this crap off of here and apply some new paste and get it back together. Alright, so I always use no less than 91% alcohol. And then a couple Q-tips. Alright, she cleans up quite nice. So we're going to go ahead and set this off to the side, and I'm going to do the heatsink and get some more paste on here and get this thing back together. So this just goes to show how lazy some manufacturers can be. Look at this thermal paste right here. There's just a line of it all the way across. I don't know if that's like a machine type deal when if it's like automatically applied and it just was dripping, or if that's a manufacturer physical person. Definitely not the best. But I'm gonna go ahead and get this cleaned up and get this thing back together, and when I come back, this thing will be in one piece. Alright, you guys, so this is the error that I keep on getting no matter what I do. I've used several different hard drives, I've even tried an SSD, and this is what I get. So what we're going to do is we are going to take another PS3 that I have, same model, same everything, and we are going to use some bits and pieces from this to try and get that one going. I will hook it up and give you guys a listen. However, I did do a video on this before, and it sounded terrible. So I'm gonna get this unhooked and get the other one hooked up and let you guys hear it, and then we're gonna tear it down and try and use parts from this to get that one going. Alright, so this is our other PS3. This thing is definitely not healthy. It's got some pretty nasty problems, but I'm going to give you guys a listen so you can see what it is that we're dealing with here. Oh, here it goes. So, that is the issue that we are dealing with this guy. So, I'm going to go ahead and get this thing apart and see what the heck is going on. And hopefully we can get, between the two PS3s, at least one working one. Alright, you guys. So this is what we are dealing with here. And wait till you see the bottom side. Absolutely destroyed. At least this shielding right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tear this thing completely down. I'm going to use the shielding from the other PS3, and then I'm going to swap in a new laser and an SSD, and then go from there and see if this thing will actually work. Alright, so since you guys already seen this process one time, I'm just going to come back when I have this thing all swapped and has its new parts, and then I will show the process of the laser replacement. Alright, you guys, so we are back with the PS3. It is many hours later. It took a lot of trial and error to get this thing going. And I know I said I was going to film the laser replacement. However, when it comes to the laser, it is a direct swap. This is not like the original PS3 or the PS3 Slim where they are married to the motherboard. Fortunately, these are not. It is just the laser assembly. It's a direct swap. So we are going to go ahead, turn this thing on, see if it plays a game, and then call it good on this video. Pray to God that this thing actually works, you guys. Alright, so we do got power. See if we get picture on the screen here. And we definitely do. Alright, we are loaded into a profile. Let's see if this thing is going to play some OG Call of Duty Black Ops 2. So I do hear the disc spinning up. So it is definitely loading. And it is loading right into the game, you guys. Absolutely phenomenal. So this is parts from the PS3 that I could not get working for the life of me, but somehow it is working perfectly fine. It doesn't sound like a jet engine, it's working. This is absolutely incredible. This just goes to show you guys what can be done with tech that has been thrown away. Absolutely incredible. So that is another successful repair, you guys. ×2. Super stoked. Can't believe it. E-Waste score, 25 bucks for both. I am just on cloud 9 right now. Totally freaking tubular, dude. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will catch you in the next one. Stay safe in the world. Peace out.